Welcome into the NFL Opening Line Report Playoff Edition, Divisional round of the playoffs coming to you. We got 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. I am Drew Martin, and like always, joined by one of the best out there, Teddy Covers. Teddy, happy Tuesday morning to you, buddy. Welcome on into the show.
Hey, great to be here, Drew. Unfortunately, coming in, I had a wrong side loser last night with Philadelphia, and that's never any fun, especially when you come with a big play on the Eagles. At least it wasn't a sweat. That one felt wrong from the opening drive, and it was. That being said, we'll survive and advance. We'll move on to the divisional round. It's worth noting there are 7 games remaining in the NFL season. 7 bettable games. I don't even know if there's a Pro Bowl this year. 4 this week, 2 next week, and then the Super Bowl. When it comes to a standard NFL week, there's 16 NFL games. So when you think about your bet sizes and the number of games you plan on betting when it comes to divisional round, conference championship, Super Bowl, remember, 7 games. That's all there's left of this season. That's less than we see. That's less than half of what we see on a normal NFL Sunday.
7 big games Teddy covers, and you know there's going to be a lot of people betting them, a lot of people watching the show, and we appreciate it, guys. Please smash that like button if you're tuning in, and feel free to comment below. Watching on replay, we love to hear where you're watching from. Lima, Peru last week, Teddy, was in the house, so a huge shout out to you in South America, all the viewers down there. But, guys, we do have 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, January 20th and 21st, Teddy. Did you want to throw out anything else before we start breaking down opening line report style in these 4 games?
No, let's talk about them. Okay. Absolutely. Well, I will. There's one thing I will note. There's not going to be an emergency betting alert on today's show. Not a chance. At this stage of the postseason, we're not going to see a whole lot of line moves. We saw a little bit. I'll talk about where the numbers open and where they've moved. But from this stage, as we talk on Tuesday morning, I don't think any of these lines going to move more than half a point between now and Sunday. So from an emergency betting alert standpoint, today's show will be light. From an informational standpoint, hopefully today's show will put you on the right track for some of these contests.
Let's get into it, guys. We're going down in rotation order. Saturday, January 20th. First game up, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific, 3:01, 3:02. Houston at Baltimore. We're seeing 44 as the total here, Teddy. -9 at most shops. There is a -9.5 out there. That is the Ravens as the home favorite. So we get the Houston Texans at the Baltimore Ravens. 44 the total, -9 Ravens as the favorite here, Teddy.
So in the regular season, I can give you look-ahead lines. In the postseason, I can't give you look-ahead lines. So I'm going to give you 3 sets of numbers for every game. I'm going to give you my powering number for the game. We're going to talk about where the market's opened. And we're going to talk about where the markets are sitting now at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. And that'll give you a sense of where the early money has come. But again, from this point forward, I'm not expecting anything when it comes to dramatic line moves in any of these ball games, barring some significant injury that has not yet happened or has not yet been recorded. Let's talk about Baltimore and Houston. My powering number has the Ravens -7.5. The markets opened 9.5/10 last night, and we've seen the money come for Houston. Mostly 9s out there now. I just saw a couple of 8.5s pop up in the global world. So we are seeing some Texans money right from the get-go. From a total standpoint, this total opened anywhere between 47.5 and 45, depending on the book. Now we're looking at 44/44.5. So we've seen Houston money, we've seen under money so far. And this is not unique when it comes, certainly the Houston money, what the betting markets tend to do when it comes to the teams off a bye week. The betting markets and the public in particular will remember the things they just saw more than the things that they saw a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago. So we tend to see the teams that have had the bye week, namely Baltimore and San Francisco, they tend to get less public action than the teams coming off of a wild card weekend win like Houston and Green Bay. When it comes to this particular setup, all right, I mean, obviously the Texans, were brilliant against the Browns. It's C.J. Stroud, 16-21, only 21 pass attempts, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns. They were taking shots. Now, there are some concerns about Houston's receiving corps. Nico Collins is a monster right now. Brevin Jordan had a 76-yard touchdown catch. John Mechie, Dalton Schultz. These are not a particularly scary receiving corps for the banged-up Texans when it comes to their wide receivers. The defense had the 2 pick sixes. That certainly deflates their offensive numbers. Only had 14 first downs in that game against Cleveland. But, Singletary ran the ball effectively. Stroud was brilliant. And the defense made all the plays when it mattered. The quotes after the game. You want to talk about a team that's feeling pretty good. DeMeco Ryans, quote, CJ is the reason why we're in this. He's special, a special young man, special players continue to shine no matter how big the moment is. Our whole team is leaning on him, and he has the shoulders to carry that weight. Stroud, who just became the youngest quarterback ever to win a playoff game, beating Michael Vick in that regard, 22 years and 102 days. Vick was 22 years and 192 days when he won it. Stroud, quote, it's been a heck of a year. I thank God I can just go another week with my teammates. This is like a dream come true. I'm super blessed to be considered with a great name like Michael Vick, who was my favorite quarterback growing up, and hopefully I can make it 2 wins. So at least they're looking forward in that regard. And worth noting, Noah Brown hurt his shoulder in the first quarter, was a non-factor, and linebacker Denzel Perryman got hurt in that ballgame as well, did not return after his third quarter rib injury. He might go this weekend. So Houston, a very young team, a team that has no postseason experience, coming off a great game against a flawed favorite. Now they're going on the highway and playing a real team. And while, I shouldn't say that their opponent wasn't a real team, but Baltimore has been the best team in the AFC all season. Now we talk about teams coming off the bye week, and the track record isn't great for teams that have had that extra week of preparation. Takes you out of your rhythm. Baltimore rested starters week 18 as well. So there are certainly some concerns about the Ravens being able to flip that switch. Same story with San Francisco, who also sat starters in week 18. So it's been a couple of weeks for both of these favorites when it comes to the last time they played a meaningful game with starters and all of that. It certainly helps a team like Baltimore from a rest perspective. Baltimore's certainly been pretty good at taking care of business and beating teams by margin. Houston's a feisty underdog. They've shown it all year, and they've shown the ability to rally from behind. Good game. I'm not sure which way I'm playing it yet. I'm thinking about it right now, Drew. That's all what I have to say about Texans and Ravens.
I like the breakdown, man. You bring up some good points, and ending it there with the Texans, pesky underdog, and you can almost kind of see it in the line, guys. It's a big line here. Baltimore -9, and with that Texans offense, could that back door be open? It is possible, but hey, it all comes down to the ultimate equalizer. In the first 2 games here, the Saturday games, both have big point spreads. So we go from -9 to the next game here, guys. The nightcap on Saturday, 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific. Green Bay Packers off of that big win up against San Francisco, the 49ers, the 1 seed in the NFC off the bye week here, Teddy. You kind of alluded to it in the last analysis in terms of a little bit of the same profile of setup here with the 1 seed off the bye, resting starters in week 18. We are seeing the 49ers -9.5 as the favorite. It's kind of a split line, though, Teddy. There are multiple shops -10, so laying double digits in that range here with the Niners at home, 50 being the total. There are 50 in the hooks out there. We get Packers at 49ers, nightcap on Saturday, TC.
So my powering number for the game is San Fran -9. You talked about the split line right now, 9.5 and 10. And it really is split. If you want a +10, you can find it. If you want a -9.5, you can find it right now, assuming you have multiple outs. But both lines available in Vegas, both lines available in the U.S., both lines available globally. I'm not sure if it's going to land close 9.5 or close 10 in this contest. Total basically sitting at 50.5 from the open, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. So We're not seeing anything on the total from a side perspective. This 9.5, 10. Again, it's going to land. The line will hold at either 9.5 or 10. I'm not sure which of the two numbers will be prevailing. Or maybe we'll see a split line throughout the course of the week, but I'm not seeing any clear indicators that the line is moving up to 10 or down to 9.5. It's split as we speak. Certainly San Fran, a team that has not necessarily fared well with the extra time to prepare in the postseason in the Shanahan era, a team that's come up a little bit short when it comes to postseason success. They've been the best team in the league all year, both sides of the football from a statistical standpoint, and they're being priced that way. They're being priced like the best team in the league. Green Bay is a really interesting team to talk about right now. How much of that was Green Bay good? How much of that was Dallas bad? Was it just that the Cowboys didn't show? Obviously, the Packers punched them in the mouth. And we look at Green Bay's season, and again, this team had a miserable, they were sitting at 2-5. They beat the Rams, the Chargers, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Bears, and then now the Cowboys. So they've beaten some decent teams during this span. Of course, they lost to the Giants during that span, but it's not like Green Bay has shown an inability to step up in class. They've stepped up in class fairly well and won a good handful of these games as underdogs. Of course, San Fran is a different animal. But when you look at some of the numbers for Green Bay, Jordan Love was phenomenal. Again, the defense didn't play well against him, but 16, went through 5 incomplete passes and 3 touchdowns, 272 yards, no picks, no sacks. Aaron Jones moved the ball on the ground. And one of the things we're going to talk about a lot in this show is teams that were able to run the football. Guess what? The passing game works. That worked for the Texans. They ran the football effectively, and Stroud had time to throw. Green Bay, Aaron Jones ran the ball all day, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. And there's Romeo Doubs open for a touchdown, and Luke Musgrave open for a touchdown, and Dontavian Wicks open for a touchdown. When the running game works, it makes the passing game effective. Green Bay was able to do that. Will they be able to do that against San Fran? Not necessarily. Lots of red flags from Green Bay on the defensive side of the football, and that's been the case down the stretch for the Packers a fair bit. And again, you don't want to overreact to a box score from a blowout game. But the defense allowed 37 first downs. They allowed 10 of 16 on third down conversions. They allowed 510 total yards. They allowed 4 of 5 red zone touchdowns. It was statistically awful defensive performance, even with the pick 6. So I'm not convinced the markets are going to be in love with that defensive showing. And that makes me fairly confident we're not going to see wise guy support, any significant wise guy support for the Packers this week, despite their 6-2 finish, or 7-2 now in their last 9 ball games. Jordan Love, we came in here with the mindset of we're going to dominate. A lot of people were counting us out. We didn't care about that. Aaron Jones, we knew it would take time to get this team together. You would hear me during the season and other players say, we're right there, we're right there, we're right there. Lately, we've been able to get over that hump. But again, how much of that was Dallas stinking up the joint? And how much of that was Green Bay playing extremely well? It was some of both. All right. Jair Alexander, questionable coming in. He sprained an ankle last week. He, in my mind, is someone to pay attention to on that injury report for Green Bay. In theory, he's going to be charged with stopping either Ayuk or Samuel this week, neither of which is an easy thing to do.
First 2 games on Saturday here in the books. We got 2 on Sunday coming your way, guys. Feel free to shout out in the comments below any questions you have. We do have a couple from last week's show we'll answer at the end here. Also in the live chat, seeing a couple questions. Thanks for chiming in, guys. Rob Lynch with one. We'll hit it right after these 2 games on Sunday. So feel free to shout out any questions here, and we will answer them at the end of the show. We got 3 o'clock on Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. Kicking us off Sunday, January 21st here, Teddy. Tampa Bay at Detroit. We got the Lions -6.5. -6 in the hook at most shops. There is a -6 out there. 48.5 being the total here, Teddy. Good handicap. We get Tampa Bay on the road. Short week, guys. Keep that in mind. So it's Bucks at Lions. Lions -6.5 here, Teddy. 48 in the hook, the total in the Motor City.
Yeah, my powering number is only 5 for this ball game on Detroit. The market's pretty much open 6. There was one book open 4.5 and got better up right away. But the market's mostly open 6, 48.5. We have seen a little bit of Detroit money, 6.5, 48.5, the prevailing numbers right now. I don't think it gets to 7. If I did, we'd emergency betting alert Detroit right now, but I'm not convinced. I think there'll be resistance, significant resistance in the markets at Detroit -7. Not only because Detroit, I think Detroit was the only team to win but not cover this past weekend. So from a betting bandwagon standpoint, Tampa got the money, Detroit didn't. And again, this time of the year, that affects the point spreads more than you think it might, even though we're talking about teams that are at the elite level in the NFL. When you're in the grade 8, you've done something well this season. We talk about the Bucs, and again, how much was Tampa good? How much was Philly bad? Mayfield, 300 yards passing, no interceptions. Rashid White in the running game, 29 for 119. They moved the chains on the grounds. The defense held Philly 0 of 9 on third downs, 0 of 2 on fourth downs. Outgained them by a full yards per play, 6.2 to 5.2 yards per play on offense was what they allowed on defense. Tampa 6-1 straight up their last 7 games. Quiet, underneath the radar. Baker Mayfield, quote, "We worked extremely hard to get a chance to be in the playoffs. We just wanted an opportunity. Our guys came out and played really, really well. Once again, the defense played lights out. We're happy, but we've still got more to go." And I pay attention to these quotes if they're already talking about next week's opponents. I want them thinking about next week's opponents when they're giving their quotes after the game. In my mind, that's a positive quote from Mayfield. I like this quote from Todd Bowles as well. "We were underdogs. We're going to be underdogs next week too. We understand that. We embrace it. We like it." And again, in a matchup where the first meeting between Philly and Tampa, Bucs had 174 total yards. Philly outgained it by 300 yards. Tampa had more yards in the first quarter on Monday night they had in that first meeting. Again, how much Philly bad, how much Tampa good? Bottom line for the Bucs right now, they're playing with house money. They're playing confident football. Detroit, I got the money with the Rams in that game. It was a sweat and a half. But Detroit found a way to win it. We'll give them credit. Jared Goff, another really good games. He was sacked 3 times, but he didn't throw any picks. Only 5 incompletes, 277 passing yards. The Lions defense sacked Stafford twice. Montgomery and Gibbs, 22 of 82 on the ground. They kept the chains moving. That said, Detroit was outgained by 1.6 yards per play. They gave up 7.7 yards per play on defense. But definitely worth noting, there were lots of concerns about the Lions' injured receiver. Sam Laporta in particular, the tight end. Well, he was healthy enough to play, and Jameson Williams was healthy enough to play, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is a Pro Bowler, and Josh Reynolds. I mean, it's not like they're short on receiving targets. Of course, the difference in that game, from a straight-up standpoint, Lions went 3 for 3 in the red zone, and the Rams went 0 for 3 in the red zone. I'll give them Detroit credit defensively. They played great red zone defense. And we talk about this home field. I want to read a couple quotes about what Detroit. Again, a team that had the 9-game playoff losing streak. They hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years. Jared Goff means a whole lot to this city. We knew what it meant when the season started to get to the playoffs and then get this win. And this is just the beginning for us. We've got some run left. This is the best home atmosphere I've ever played in. And I expect next week we'll top that. Of course, he played in L.A., so it should be the best home atmosphere he ever played in. It's not like the Rams have a great home field, even when they're sold out. Aiden Hutchinson, quote, "Going into this game, I had 2 things I was playing for. I was playing for my teammates, and I was playing for the city. This city has been so deserving of this for so long, and we're going to keep it up." Those are positive quotes from both teams. Again, the Lions, the only team to get the win without covering in the first round of the playoffs. Could that happen 2 weeks in a row?
First game on Sunday in the books here, guys. We got the nightcap. Last game here in the grade 8, Teddy. Is that a thing? Instead of the Elite 8, the grade 8, or are you just throwing it out there?
Sometimes I say something, I don't know. It just pops in my head that minute. That's what happens when you're live on air. No, Elite 8 is the appropriate terminology there. I suppose.
Okay. Who knows? Maybe grade 8 catches on in the NFL. We'll see, guys. We got last game here, guys. 317, 318, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills. Oh, what a matchup over the last few years. Although, change the landscape, Teddy. Usually in Arrowhead. Now we get KC on the road in Buffalo. Looks like the Bills -2 in the hook, with juice on that, -120, let's call it -115 at a lot of shops. There is still -110 out there, but -2.5 Buffalo Bills as we're talking right now. 46 or 46 in the hook as the total. Teddy covers Chiefs at Bills in the nightcap on Sunday.
So my priority number points me towards Kansas City. My numbers pick them on this ball game. The markets are at 2.5, showing signs of going to 3. I don't think it gets to 3. For this ball game. If it does, I think it'll be a split line. There'll be 2.5s and 3s, and it'll be 3 with juice and all of that. But I would at 3, we will see buyback on Kansas City. And obviously, we talk about the series history. These teams have now played. This will be their 7th meeting since the 2020 season. Kansas City has done fairly well in those contests. The last 5 have all been played at Arrowhead. That being said, the Bills won 3 of those games. And one of the ones the Chiefs won came in overtime. So it's not like Buffalo's been unsuccessful in this series. And of course, -2.5 last year in Kansas City. They won that game 24-20. So obviously the fact that this game being played in Buffalo, like I said, the last 5 meetings all at Arrowhead since 2021. But even in those meetings, the Bills had some success. We talk about the current form right now, some of the quotes we saw from this past weekend's action. I mean, KC did exactly what they wanted to do. 34 rush attempts, 41 pass attempts, balanced offense. They had the ball all day long, slow, methodical drives. That's what this year's Chiefs team is. No picks, no sacks on Mahomes. When you have Pacheco, Isaiah Pacheco and Rashid Rice and Travis Kelce, that was enough with this defense. And Kansas City, we're always talking about Mahomes, the defense is no good. People seem to forget. Defense wins championship, and Kansas City is a championship-level defense. All right? I mean, we talk about all the Chiefs' offense is working, the Chiefs' offense isn't working. Guess what? They just helped Miami do a touchdown last week. Their defense has been dominant all year. They're struggling in the red zone. 2 of 6 in the red zone isn't going to cut it in this game. Unless, of course, the Bills are 0 for 0 again. The Dolphins never got inside KC's 20-yard line. So that speaks to their defense. And again, it's, 15 consecutive home playoff games for Kansas City, not counting the 3 Super Bowls they've been in that span. Now they have to hit the highway, a true hostile environment game in the postseason, something we haven't seen in the Patrick Mahomes era. 15 straight home playoff games. So, when it comes to the conditions, Mahomes, guys came in with that attitude, that mentality. We knew it was going to be cold. All week we were preaching, let's come in there with that fire and just get after it and see what happens. Rashid Rice. Everyone was out there playing for each other. We just put the weather to the side and knew that our opponent didn't want to be out there as much as we didn't. We showed our love for the game. Worth noting, I like the opposing coaches' quotes as well. Mike McDaniel, quote, "We knew they were going to put a lot of attention towards our receivers. We thought we had the right plan. Obviously, it wasn't. Hats off to them for executing their plan in the most important time." And let's not forget, when it comes to kickers, in a game in this point spread range, kickers could matter a lot. Harrison Butker, as good as it gets. What he had 4 field goals in that game. Andy Reid. Butker was phenomenal. That was like kicking a block of ice. I certainly trust Butker more than what we're seeing from the Buffalo side of the equation. Of course, the Bills, Josh Allen played well, 21 of 30, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. But the key is their ability to run the football. Allen, James Cook, Ty Johnson, 34 for $179 in the win over Pittsburgh. And the balance on offense, 11 passing first downs, 11 rushing first downs, +2 in turnovers, didn't commit any. These are positive things for Buffalo when you talk about a defense that's tough, or an offense that's tough to stop. And of course, this is a Bills team that, what do they won now? 6 straight ball games. The injuries are a big concern for Buffalo on the defense side of the football. Taron Johnson concussion yesterday. Rasul Douglas out. Tyrell Dodson out. It's at one point in the game against the Steelers, they were playing with all backups at the linebacking position, and that to me is a significant concern. I've got KC as a better defense when both these two teams are healthy, so that may be a problem for Buffalo. Josh Allen, we've got a resilient group. The veteran leadership we have, I really think it's unmatched in this league. This team was 6-6. Now they're a couple wins away from playing in the Super Bowl. Good game on Sunday night. This one has all the potential to live up to the hype. I don't expect either team to run away with this one.
Absolutely. Sunday night going to be a big one, guys. Bills and Chiefs. We got a couple questions here before we shut it down, Teddy. In the chat box, a couple people asking about, the Saturday games, big point spreads here, -9, 9.5, even as high as -10 in the San Francisco. Any interest in teasing these down? Do you recommend any teasers for this weekend?
So certainly when you talk about teasing candidates, the Ravens, you're going to have to put a 6.5 point teaser to get them below the 3. Then 49ers, you have to give them a 7 point teaser. So you're really looking at a 7 point teaser to get from 9.5 to 2.5 on San Francisco. I would not be shocked if one of those two teams lost outright.
Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked. When we talk about the recent history of the divisional round, the bye week hasn't always been such a positive sign for a number of teams. I believe the last 2 years, and again, we're talking about a 17-game season. That's why I only use the last two. But the last 2 years, the home favorite coming out from the 1 seed, I believe they're 1-3 against the spread. And the 1 year both teams lost outright. That was 2022, not this. It was 2 years ago, not last year. But I'm not going to play a whole lot of teasers in the postseason, even though in theory the lines are as tight as they're supposed to be. There will be a teaser killer among these 4 games, and I would expect that teaser killer more likely to come on Saturday. Because we can so you can sense that Baltimore, San Fran, are both going to be positive teaser candidates. The books will have liability on those games, teaser-wise. I'm not a huge teaser player in general, and I'm certainly not a huge teaser player in the postseason because, again, that one outlier game is gonna kill all your bets, and has the potential to kill all your bets. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see one game that we're talking about now. We're like, what?
Yep.
So,
yeah, for sure. But Teddy, I have a follow-up question for that. I mean, you bring up some good points in terms of the teams off the bye, plus both of these two teams resting starters in the last week of the regular season. You mentioned, the possibility of one or if not both of these two teams going down outright. Any interest, say, kind of almost correlated with like college football bowl season? If you're picking a dog, maybe, make sure to sprinkle some on the money line. Does that interest you more in this round right here? If you're liking one of the dogs, to go ahead and throw some coin on the money line, get that big plus price?
Just about any dog that I play, I'm going to put a taste. I'm going to sprinkle on the money line. Certainly at this time of the year, again, we saw this last week. There was one team that won but didn't cover. That was Detroit. We could see that amongst, again, we're looking at -6.5, -9.5, or 10, -9, and -2.5. We could reasonably expect to see that again this week. One team wins, doesn't cover. I would expect more than that.
Okay. Rob Lynch in the house, watching live here. Teddy, do sharper bettors tend to bet late in the playoffs? Seemed like there was a lot of steam on every spread for the wild card week. Do you notice that in terms of timing of sharper bets being later in the week in the playoffs?
So one thing that the quote unquote sharp money is doing, they're recognizing that there's only 6 games last week. All right. A sharp money is not betting more because it's a playoff game. Sharp money is not betting more because it's a bigger game or because it's a TV game. It's only when there's action coming in, when there's a rational reason to make the wager. That's where the sharp money's coming in, at least from there. And much of it is algorithm driven. their formula spits out, all right, this number should be 7, and it's 9. Boom, there's a bet. That's what a lot of this stuff has to do with. Much more than many people would tell you. It's an algorithm spitting out a number, and the markets and then the bettors who are looking at those numbers saying, all right, this is, there's value here, there's value there, and if we make enough bets across the board, we're going to be on the right side of more than the wrong side. Now I've lost track of what the even question was, Drew. What am I supposed to be answering?
Just
I feel like I'm babbling.
Just have you noticed that there is quote unquote sharper bets later in the week, or not so much?
I mean, so you'll see action come before kickoff, just like you do on any NFL Sunday. You'll see action come throughout the course of the week, but I didn't notice it being I don't notice that it's particularly different in terms of the betting styles or strategies from the sharp money at this time of year, early week versus later week. And again, we're not going to see a whole lot of movement on these lines early week. We're not. So whatever movements are going to come will probably come in the 24 hours before kickoff. But I don't expect any of these numbers to move significantly. So in terms of a huge sharp week, the sharps aren't loading up on these games. They were loading up on week 18, when there were weak numbers. Sharps are, there's action. But in terms of a big, significant line move that's based on, no. They were just taking advantage. When we talk about all these numbers right now, I guess there's been a sharp move towards Houston, Baltimore under. I would consider that a legit sharp move off the opener. There's probably been a little bit of sharp money on Detroit so far. That's it. And both those, modest. So whatever we see, we're going to see later in the week. Most of what we're going to see later, mostly we're likely to see later in the week. But again, I don't think we'll see a ton of sharp action this week. It's just not that time of year in the NFL.
Teddy, you brought up some good stats with the Packers and letting up 37 first downs, I think you said. Nice stat there.
Yeah.
In the Wildcard Weekend. How do you handicap that in terms of, some of that being garbage time with the Cowboys being able to move the ball? Yeah. So it's kind of a tricky handicap in itself. I mean, are you letting that many first downs as a huge negative for the Packers, D?
No. That's one of those scenarios where, again, what we're trying to do is talk about what the markets are going to see. The markets just saw Green Bay give up 500 yards and 37 first downs. They're going to go, that's a negative for Green Bay. I could care less that the Packers gave up. They did exactly what they were supposed to do in the second half of that game, is burn clock and let Dallas do whatever they wanted to, as long as they didn't score quick strike touchdowns. So when we talk about the betting market's overreaction to that number, I don't look at Green Bay and go, that's a nightmare scenario. That said, the Packers' defensive injuries concern me. That's a new report we'll be paying attention to throughout the course of the week.
Teddy, I guess quickly, we Samuel asking, is playing every dog on the money line a good strategy?
Every dog? If it's a good week for dogs, it will be.
Yeah.
Is it a good strategy? It's not the way I handicap. That said, there are dumber things to do than say, all right, you know what, I'm playing all the dogs on the money line this round. There's 4 games. I'll play them all on the money line, let the chips fall where they may. There's dumber ideas than that one. I don't think it's a particularly bad. And okay, you're going to get some attractive plus prices on the dogs, but I'll just say there's going to be a sharp square divide probably on both of Saturday's games. The Joes are going to like what they just saw, which is Houston looking good and Green Bay looking good. And the pros are going to look at the 2 favorites and saying these are the class teams of the league. So I do expect some kind of a sharp square divide for the 2 Saturday games with the number 1 seeds. That tends to be the case in these wild card matchups, especially when we talk about Baltimore, who hasn't won a Super Bowl, and San Fran, they won a Super Bowl, but they haven't won a Super Bowl in the last decade. And San Fran, who's kind of underachieved in the postseason in recent years. So they don't have quite the betting bandwagon that, say, a Kansas City might have, given their postseason success.
Teddy, we saw Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that aggressive defense under Ben Johnson. Any opinion here? Question on how do you think Goff handles the zero blitz from Tampa Bay, which we saw be very successful just last night?
My first lean in that game is Tampa Bay plus. I'll leave it at that. Don't know if I'm going to get there. But my lean in that game is Tampa Bay plus.
And with the new Monday night kind of schedule here in the wild card playoffs, and we just had two. Tampa Bay short week with travel. Any concern there? Any like heightened concern more in this matchup than say, I don't know, having regular rest?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I haven't bet it yet. I haven't given it to the clients yet. I'm just, it's Tuesday morning, but it's Monday morning. We're thinking about games. And my initial thought is, is Tampa plus before Detroit minus.
Okay. Hey, huge shout out to the people chiming in on the chat, the comments below, guys. It really helps the algorithm. Just saying you like the show. I know Priest Mahomes in here. A lot of guys. We had Free Range in the house from Lima, Peru. We got Essex, England here as well. We'd love to hear where you guys are watching from around the world. And, hey, where you agree, where you disagree, all is welcome in the comments. I'll be in there throughout the week. Teddy covers as well, chiming in, answering any questions. And feel free to chime in and ask any questions. We'll answer them on next week's show. I believe we're going back to Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah, I like the Monday show. I like Monday shows a lot better because Mondays we can actually get the line. Here it's already happened, and there's not much we can do because yesterday we literally had one line up for one game. I'm not doing an open line report with one game. San Fran, Green Bay, go to town. So we had to wait for the markets to mature. We had to wait for the games to be finished, and that it is what it is. So we went Tuesday this week. This will be our last Tuesday show of the football season moving forward. We'll be on Monday next week, the following week, and then we'll do a couple shows for the Super Bowl as well, and then one recap show at the end. So I think we have, 4 or 5 more shows in this season's edition of the Opening Line Report. I look forward to it. And boy, Drew said it right. The comments on YouTube every week are amazing. They're amazing. I really am. I feel like it's the only chance I get to really talk to you guys. And you guys can ask me a question direct. I do my best. I get in there and answer them. I always say I'm going to come back multiple times, and I try to get in there at least twice throughout the course of the week to answer whatever questions you have, reply to your comments. We appreciate them very much. And both Drew and I will be in there again this week to reply to comments and answer questions on YouTube. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, not only to watch the show, but to comment afterwards. We genuinely appreciate it and helps all the algorithms. So thank you.
Well said, Teddy Covers. Check them out, WagerTalk.com. I am Drew Martin. Guys, that's going to do it for the show. Smash that like button, comment below. Teddy Covers, Drew Martin checking out, guys. Enjoy the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. We'll be back